recording. So just a friendly reminder to everyone, we are recording this. So just consider yourself, another one, consider yourself warned, we are recording. And what we're going to be talking about today is the National Bike Summit that we recently attended, a group of us from Nebraska, and what we learned, what we did, and just general reactions of what some of the speakers and our experiences talking to our members of Congress and other things. Mona, I'm going to put you on the hook to text me if you hear anything weird with my audio or anything weird with my slides. So consider yourself on the hook for that. Okay, so we attended the National Bike Summit a week and a half ago now. It's usually, it's every year that's been, it's held every year, pretty much the same time, that first week of March, tail end of February. And it's normally, you know, in person, obviously. Normally we all go to Washington, D.C. and enjoy fellowship and friendship and connecting with our fellow colleagues from around the country. But last year it was canceled at the very last minute because that's when all the lockdowns started with COVID. And they decided to just, you know, go with it right out of the box as a virtual event again this year. I think there are some pros and cons to the virtual event. Certainly the virtual format made it much, much less expensive. The conference itself is a pretty pricey event to attend. Not only is the registration cost a little pricey, but it's, you know, 3 days minimum. Usually for those of us who need to fly in, you might even be there for 5 days by the time you try to get your schedule all figured out. So 5 days in Washington, D.C. in a hotel, plus registration, plus flight, it can be a little pricey. So, you know, I think the average attendance of late has been 300 to 400 people maybe, and this year they had over 1,000, I believe. So they were definitely able to reach more folks with this virtual format. On the downside, like I said, we weren't able to connect and we weren't able to meet with our members of Congress in person and their members and their staffs in person on the Hill, which is a big part of the conference as well. We were able to do that virtually, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So, but the good news was that, you know, a lot more people were engaged, and I think the League of American Bicyclists would tell you that they were able to get some additional high-profile speakers that they may not have been able to get had they needed them to, you know, be in person. So, for instance, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg was added to the agenda at the last minute. And that was possible because he could sit down at his desk and flip a switch and be interviewed right there without having to build in the travel time and the security and everything that goes along with it. So all in all, it was a good experience. They handled the technology well, and I think things went fairly smoothly as you can hope to have, I think, for that many people and this many moving parts. And let me see if I can, here we go. So I just want to go over first a few reactions to some of these plenary sessions that they offered. If you go to bikeleague.org and look under Summit, you can find the full agenda for the event, and they're going to eventually put links to all of these sessions up on their website, I believe. So I don't know if those are live yet. I should have checked that before I hopped on here today, but you'll be able to go back and watch all these, I believe, if you want to, at your own pace. So, you know, I would encourage you to do that if you can. One of the highlights of the National Bike Summit for me, and remember, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to this. This is like my happy place. So if I seem a little odd to be so enthusiastic about this, you'll just have to bear with me. But one of the things that I really enjoy is always hearing from the high-profile elected officials that are involved with transportation policy across the country. And the opening plenary session this year had 3 people that were just amazing. On the bottom, I should add, on the top left, you can see the man in the black shirt there. The whole event was closed captioned and had live sign language throughout the whole thing. So you could watch it and see it being signed in real time. And I thought that was a fantastic additional benefit to the virtual event. But in this on this slide, you can see 3 members of Congress. On the bottom left is Representative DeFazio, who is the chair of the House Transportation Committee. On the upper right, you will see Earl Blumenauer. I can't believe I almost blanked on his name. Representative Earl Blumenauer from Oregon. You will never see him without a bow tie, and you for sure will never see him without a bike pin on his lapel. He has been a long time champion for biking and walking from the Portland area. And then a new face that I had not seen before at a National Bike Summit was Representative Ayanna Pressley. And she was, I'm sorry, Ayanna, not Alana, Ayanna Pressley from Boston. And she was just fantastic. She is a bicyclist herself. When she was introduced, she spoke longingly and lovingly of her bike rides back in Massachusetts and working with local mayors there on bicycle issues when she was in either state or local government. You know, and she's very humble and yet very intelligent and just a great champion, the kind of leader you want to have, somebody who is bold and assertive yet humble at the same time. So I was blown away by her personally. I thought she was very inspiring, and I was glad to see she was one of many people of color that were on this agenda that really the League has done a good job of really diversifying and really having the agenda and the speakers reflect really the population of the country. So they've made some good steps in that direction, and they were all just amazing contributors. I was very fortunate to be asked to be a moderator for one of the breakout sessions. And my session was with Tokes Amoshekan. You can see him on the top right there. Tokes is the director of Caltrans, the director of transportation for the state of California. And he's also the chair of the Active Transportation Council for AASHTO. And AASHTO, so we don't get too jargony here, is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, I believe. AASHTO is the group that writes the Green Book, the book with all of the rules about how our streets are supposed to be designed, all the regulations, all of the really technical stuff. And a lot of times what we'll hear is, well, we'd love to do such and such of a design, but AASHTO, the regulations, the Green Book says we can't do it that way or whatever. So AASHTO is very influential in how our streets get built, and to have him as the chair of the newly formed within the last few years Active Transportation Council is fantastic. He talked a lot about the work that he's doing in California, but he also talked about how the work he's doing on the national level with this committee, and how AASHTO is in the process of updating their guidance for how to design bike lanes and bike facilities. So we got word during the session that that new bike design guide will be available in 2023. It's like there might be somebody else coming in. Here we go. So that was good news to hear. He also talked about how there were some things that were started under the previous administration with regards to some policy changes and some regulation changes for some guidance on street design. And one of those things that in the technical world that has been really causing some consternation is the update of the MUTCD model or manual. And that's that's sort of the how-to with all of the specific engineering requirements in it. And not only that, but signage and paint markings and what you need on the sign and what color they can be and what size and reflection and what all of those things are part of the MUTCD manual. And it's due for an update, and the previous administration had started that process, put out a draft, and there were many bike advocates who found really concerning updates in that draft, specifically some things that would have prevented bikes from being allowed on streets that did not have marked infrastructure. So can you imagine a federal official guideline that says a bike is not allowed on a street unless there is a striped bike lane? I mean, it was just, they came back and they fixed it right away and they said, oh, it was an unintentional error. But, I think it was kind of interesting that Tokes kind of said, well, they say that it was unintentional and we'll see how that goes. But while there are many who would like the draft of the new MUTCD guidelines to be completely ditched and started over from scratch, Director Omashekhin said that he prefers that most recently they added 90 days to the comment period for people to go through and review it more. He wants to see that play out before any, rash decisions are made to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So we'll see how that goes. But he was very very open and answered lots of good questions, and it's encouraging to know that we have a council on active transportation that's got some real high profile folks on it that really do want to make change within AASHTO. As I mentioned, Secretary Buttigieg was a last minute addition to the agenda. And I will tell you that it is as if he has been a staff member of the League of American Bicyclists his whole life. He is all in on active transportation, biking, walking, trails, transit. He is a former mayor, as I'm sure you know, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And South Bend, while he was mayor, made really great strides in their bicycle friendliness. They they were a smart cities participant. And so he really knows what it takes to get projects built on the city level, which I think is a huge benefit to him to be the director now, Secretary of Transportation. But, he was saying it was as if the league could have, they didn't obviously, but it was as if they could have just written it and handed it to him. He talks the talk. And he walks the walk, because not long before the bike summit, he was photographed, maybe you saw it on social media, riding one of the Capital Bike Share bikes home from his office. So that's absolutely fantastic. So it's really, it's exciting to have him in that chair and to see what kind of support will be coming down the pike from him when it comes to trying to get things more bicycle and pedestrian friendly and safety, Vision Zero, all those things coming from the top down. Oh, my dog is barking. I'm sorry about that in the background. I want to stop here, and I'm going to kind of put Mona on the spot a little bit, just because I know she's on the call, and I kind of warned her ahead of time I was going to do this, but just so you don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. Mona, do you have any reactions from the summit or any of the high profile speakers that you tuned into?
Well, excuse me. First, I would say that for this being a virtual event, I would completely do this again. So I don't know where they're going to go in the future, but it was so well done. And I really felt like I was able to participate, because even though you had these sessions, you were able to ask questions. You were able to ask questions in advance, and a lot of questions did get answered. So I felt like I was being heard, or that the people who were asking questions, who wanted answers, were being heard. And so I would encourage you, if they do a virtual summit in the future, and if you're even remotely interested, to participate, because I do think it was an extremely well done event. The big takeaway that I got from the summit this year was that it was so rewarding after a year of what seemed like isolation. It was so rewarding to see so many like-minded people who were passionate about what we do, and that kind of I don't know, Julie, how to even say it, but it was kind of like it gave me a boost. It gave me a shot of energy that we needed to really look towards the future and keep going and overcome any obstacles that we may be having, and that are presented by just the pandemic and social distancing and all of those things, because our lifestyles have changed so much. But the amount of energy that came through from this summit, I was just so excited for that. And then to also hear Pete Buttigieg speak was inspiring. So those are just my overall comments. I don't know if you were looking for something specific, Julie, but those were my biggest takeaways
Yeah, that's
from
great.
the summit this year.
That's great. And you bring up something that's always something for me every year too, and I've been attending for a really long time annually. That's like you said, the enthusiasm and just feeling a renewed sense of spirit. After as bicycle and pedestrian safety advocates, you all know that it can be a difficult job sometimes, and we're not always, frequently not on the winning side, so to speak. And it just seems like sometimes that everything is such a struggle. And it's always so nice in the spring, because Washington, D.C. is always a few weeks ahead of us in terms of climate, to go out there and be in the sunshine and get on a bicycle and be with colleagues and be inspired. It just sends me back ready to tackle the world when I get home. So that's an additional added benefit, I agree, of this event. So moving on, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you, when it is available online, to go to bikeleague.org and listen to the plenary session given by Charles T. Brown, Arrested Mobility, exploring the adverse social, political, economic, and health outcomes of over-policing BIPOC mobility in the United States. This session was just amazing. I need to go back and listen to it again, because I was telling a friend the other day, I think I missed so much of it because there were so many times Charles would make a statement about something and it would just, oh, Mona's telling me summit attendees can't view the sessions. Okay, well, we'll figure that out.
It's Julie, it's only those who registered for the summit can go back and view the sessions. If they weren't registered, they're not posting them on the website for the general public.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think maybe they might do that maybe down the line or something, but we should get him to come out and be a speaker in Nebraska if we can't watch it online. I feel like I missed so much of it because there were so many times where he would say something that just stopped me dead in my tracks as an aha moment, as a wow, maybe I knew what, generally what the statement was. He wasn't necessarily new information, but the way he said it, the way he explained it, just stopped me in my tracks. It was so good. And I think the biggest, and I tweeted about this on our social media, if you were paying attention there, the biggest thing that I got out of his presentation was proximity is not access. And to me, that sums it up so clear. That is the whole deal. So just because you have 100 miles of great, fantastic bike lanes in your town, if there are people who cannot access those bike lanes, if they live close by, but they have to cross a freeway to try to get there, or if they are concerned about being profiled by law enforcement or whatever the hurdles might be that prevent them from accessing all of the great stuff we do. All of this, the great stuff we do is not for, it's not gonna, we're not gonna benefit from it until people have access. All people have access physically, from a safety perspective, from the color of your skin, whatever it might be, from law enforcement, we all need access. And so it just really caused me to rethink, how do we define that word? And how can we now, moving forward, use that little precise phrase that is just so good to try to move our cities to do better, and us as advocates to do better as well. So I would love to bring him on board. He's a professor, I believe, at Rutgers, but he's also an advocate and has been doing this work a long time, and just, oh, right where, hit me right where it needed to. As I mentioned before, the other big part of the National Bike Summit is Lobby Day, where we go, the Hill Day, as they call it, where we all go to Capitol Hill and have meetings with our members of Congress and or their staff members. You know, it's really fun when you're walking around Capitol Hill and going into the various office buildings to see people walking around. They've got their bike pins on, and we're kind of running into each other all over the place. You know, it definitely makes an impression to the members of Congress and their staffs. They'll, you know, they kind of, oh, you guys are back with the bike buttons. Yep, I remember you from last year. So that's always fun. But, you know, every year the league does a really great job of educating us as attendees about the issues that are coming soon when it comes to transportation on the federal level. They educate us about the different bills that are important, why they are important, what specific things to really focus on when we have our meetings with our members of Congress, so that we can take advantage of those few short minutes that we have with folks. They send out, you know, there's videos and there's handouts, there's everything you would need to really immerse yourself in all of the details, so you can speak, you know, intelligently with these folks about asking for their support for these bills, or asking how their member of, how the person that they serve feels about the bills or whatever. It's always very well done. And this year, the big thing that we talked about in all of our meetings was the reauthorization of the transportation bill. And the federal transportation bill is a huge behemoth of a thing that doesn't happen very often in terms of getting reauthorized. It's something that is, you know, it takes a lot of time. And now that it's very political, as you might imagine. And so this is the year that they're gonna try to get it through. And that means that this is our chance to ask our members of Congress to support the changes that Representative DeFazio and others are putting forth to improve the amount of funding that goes to transportation alternatives in that bill. Transportation alternatives pay for most of the bike and pedestrian infrastructure that we see implemented in our cities. You know, there's the highway trust fund and the gas tax, and there's all kind of other mechanisms that are used to pay for the streets and the roads and the interstates and transit and airports and all of that. But the tiny little sliver of the pie that usually gets used for most bike and pedestrian infrastructure is transportation alternatives dollars. And so one of our asks this year was to, you know, please support the increase in transportation alternatives funding. We, you know, need to point out that biking and walking in particular represent, you know, I think it's 20% of the trips that are taken, and they get, you know, 2% of the money. And we've seen pedestrian, in particular, pedestrian crashes and fatalities increasing year over year nationally as of late. And we need to make sure that when we're spending this money, that it's getting spent in a way that everyone is safe, not just the people in the cars. Because, they pointed out our cars are being built safer and safer all the time. And so the people inside the cars are being more and more protected just by the vehicle. And we're still, the vulnerable road users out there are still, relying on some paint on the ground, if we're lucky, to keep us safe. I also wanted to mention the name of all the folks that were with us at the National Bike Summit as part of the Nebraska delegation, and those that participated in these meetings on Capitol Hill. So Mona and I, of course, were there. Katie Bradshaw from Scottsbluff, our current board president. Kate Dumas, who is our incoming board president. She's from Omaha, but a longtime Hastings resident. Edith Matheson was there from Lincoln, representing the Great Plains Bicycle Club. Jesse Poor, also a member of our board of directors. Jason Buss, who is the president of the Nebraska Trails Foundation. Benny Foltz, who is the director of Heartland Bike Share. And Jamie Granquist, who is the Lincoln City manager for Heartland Bike Share, was also there. I know that Barb Fraser was tuned in to the summit sessions, but she did not attend the Hill Day with us. But anyway, we were able to, most of us tune into most of the meetings. Some of us, tuned into the ones with the members of Congress that were from our home districts and not maybe the others that were not from our particular districts, but we had a really nice group that attended all of those meetings virtually. The Complete Streets Act was another piece of legislation that we talked about with the members in the meetings. This is something that the league has recognized that there's now over like 1,200 or more cities and towns across the country that have adopted complete streets policies. But as with many of us in Nebraska, it's the implementation of that gets difficult. And so the Complete Streets Act would do things like provide some guidance to state departments of transportation to help them develop recommendations for cities on what their complete streets policies need to have. There's some grant opportunities, lots of things like that will help on that implementation part, because the policy is great, but if it sits on the shelf, we won't be getting anywhere. The final one that we talked about was the Safe Streets Act, and that was on the House side. This is something that it may not really impact Nebraska right off the bat, because it looks more at the states that have the highest number of fatalities and directs them to take extra measures to make sure they are looking at not just the data related to car crashes when it comes to making streets safer and where those improvements are needed, but looking at vulnerable user audits of streets and highways to make sure that they are looking at all the data to make it safer. That was one that, we were able to talk about. Between all of these three bills, we were able to talk about how they would impact us in Nebraska and what we've seen happen in the last few years. And we were able to translate that in, some of these things that may not apply necessarily to Nebraska in theory, but we were able to translate the importance of it with a few key pieces of information. We were sure to share with them the bike boom data that we have for Nebraska. This is just from the Omaha area, but Nebraska was not different than any other state or city, that saw a huge influx of people purchasing bicycles, digging their old bikes out of the garage and riding them. In the past year, there's been a huge improvements in terms of the numbers. So we were able to show that. Kate Dumas works for Champion Systems and Factor Bikes, which is based in Lincoln. It's a bicycle business, two of them based in Lincoln. And she was able to talk about how 75% of their customers right now are new to biking or buying new bikes, and it's making up 40% of their revenue. That, bikes are parts and frames are backlogged for 6 months. I mean, it's just, their business is just booming and overrun right now. So it was really great to have her speak from that sort of business side of it. I shared this slide with, I think, the senators and Representative Fortenberry's staff. This is from a previous webinar, if you've been tuning in. Fadi Al-Salim and Ali are the ones that have done this research on behalf of NDOT. And we shared this slide to show that, you know, if you make an improvement, it really does bring more people out. It makes it safer and makes more people more comfortable to be getting out on the street using their bikes. So we talked about the lane diet, the road diet that happened on South 13th Street in Lincoln, and how it improved that neighborhood. It made it safer to cross. You know, we have the data to back it up. So, you know, we were able to show, again, it's happening in Nebraska. This isn't some weird thing that just happens in other places around the country. And then it was very interesting. I don't know why I had never thought of this or realized the context of this before, but you know, the three very horrible crashes that happened in 2019 involving children, we had each one of those three that happened within about a month of each other, happened one in each congressional district. So this is, you know, we were able to talk about Jacoby Estrada from Blair, and that's Representative Fortenberry's district, about how he was in a crosswalk with a green light and was hit and killed by a person driving a truck who ran the red light, and the amount of truck traffic that comes through the downtown, and how we were able to say thank you, because there's going to be now a new truck bypass to try to built around Blair to try to keep those trucks from flowing into town like that. But that was in Fortenberry's district. In Don Bacon's district, we were able to talk about Abby Whitmore, who was killed in this intersection in downtown Papillion, that even though there's signs and crosswalks and flashing lights, we still have 4 lanes of traffic coming through town. From the north, they're coming down a big hill. You know, it's just, and it's a state highway that runs right through a main street downtown. A great example of why our highways need to be, we need to think bigger about our highways besides just the open road. We need to think about how they're designed when they hit those city limits. And then of course, this is JP Walgren from Scotts Bluff in Adam Smith's district, District 3, or District 3, who was hit on Broadway, which previously used to be Highway 71, but since there's been a bypass around town, but it was built as Highway 71. And you know, the way that this is designed, it's very easy for people to drag race coming right off this on-ramp of sorts. And that's exactly what happened in broad daylight, 2 trucks drag racing. They found out later, they estimated them going 70 miles an hour. They hit JP, and you can see the skid marks there on the street. How he survived, we will never know, but thank God he did, and he's recovering. But you know, the ability for the cars to get going this fast, and for such a stretch with no stops, no stoplights, no stop signs, right in front of the middle school, that design facilitates those speeds. And that's a great example of why we need complete streets. That's a great example of why transportation alternatives funding for projects like this, for smaller cities, to access that funding, to that bill, by the way, will also give cities the ability to hire technical assistance so that they can get an engineer in to help them write proposals for those grants, so that they're better quality and more likely to get funded. It would give the state some flexibility in terms of helping these smaller communities with the 20% local match funds that they need to provide once they get these grants or get this funding. All of that will help our smaller, more rural communities in Nebraska, and we were sure to highlight that. So now what? You know, we're back to reality now. As I said, we're full of vim and vigor and ready to go and get ready for spring and bike month and bike to work day and all those things that are coming soon. I am following up with all the folks that we met with to make sure they get a thank you note, and a reminder of the bills that we talked to them about, and what we hope to see them support that. We'll need to stay in touch with those members of Congress. The League is always quick to remind us that once a year is not enough. We need to be staying in touch with those offices if we can throughout the year. And certainly this year with the transportation reauthorization happening, you can be sure that we'll be doing that. And then of course, we'll be staying engaged with the League with all of their action alerts. There might be additional legislation that comes down the pike, some things related to potential tax breaks for purchasing e-bikes, trail funding. There's a few other things that might be coming down the pike that they didn't select for us to focus on when we had our meetings, but might be part of that transportation reauthorization. And of course, we will keep everyone up to date on our social media, on opportunities to engage themselves with our members of Congress. I guess I'll say too that we were able to meet in person, virtually in person, with Senator Deb Fischer. She was on the call. Usually we only meet with staffers because the members are busy or in committee meetings or on the floor doing votes or something, but Senator Fischer was able to join us, and also Representative Smith from the 3rd District was able to join us. So that was encouraging. It was good. They gave us a full 30 minutes, and it was good to chat with them. Representative Fortenberry's new chief of staff is a former bike racer, and he is quite full of energy. He was a mile a minute. Chief, it was quite interesting for me to try to keep the meeting from going off the rails and try to keep us on point, but we do what we can do. He gave us the idea of perhaps there are, direct requests from appropriations that could be asked. Say, if we have a project and we need this much money, tell us and we'll go see if we can find it. It was just kind of shocking to hear him say that, but we'll see if that's a possibility. And Senator Sass, we met with one of his staffers as well. We know that all of the staff have been through a lot, in recent weeks with everything happening on the national level. So we appreciated their time. Lots of folks, Zooming in from home for those meetings. So let's look at the chat box. Susan Rodenberg, you can see some of the National Bike Summit sessions on the Facebook page do not have to be registered. So apparently Secretary Buttigieg, his session is on their Facebook page. So check that out. There might be a few that are available. Okay, that's a lot of talking from me. Do you have any questions that you could put into the chat? Or I don't think there's too many of us on the call. If you wanted to unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you were one of those that participated, if you wanted to provide any insight that you felt like you gained from the event. Anyone? Bueller? All right, no worries. So that's the National Bike Summit. I'm hearing that they got great feedback from the participants. I'm hearing that there are a lot of people who are hoping that they will continue to provide or continue to do this particular event as maybe a hybrid model where you can join virtual or you can join in person. There's a lot of logistics to be worked out with that, because certainly you want to reach as many people as you can, but there is so much value to having us all on the Hill meeting with our members of Congress and other things like that, to having us there in person. And perhaps there are ways that they can produce the event and at a price point that's lower that would make it more accessible to folks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we will see some sort of a hybrid model. moving forward, but we'll see. Mona, wise Mona, reminds me that I can tell you, if you want to go back and see all of our social media, you can follow hashtag Bike Summit 21 on Twitter and go back, type that in and go back and see not only our tweets, but those of everyone who is using that hashtag for the event. We also used hashtag NE@NBS, Nebraska National Bike Summit for our specific tweets. So please check that out. I think that is all. I don't see anything else in the chat box. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap us up for the afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank everyone for joining throughout this webinar series. I think I speak for Mona and me when I say that the engagement and the turnout just blew us away. It was far beyond our wildest expectations. So, you know, we'll need to look at trying to figure out a way to do this maybe next winter as well. It really keeps us all engaged and keeps us all learning as we are sort of hibernated, and hope to get some new faces. Hopefully too, we hope to return to some normal programming, maybe an in-person state bike summit again. I'm not sure about this year, but maybe next year, we'll see, and we'll move forward. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe out there. Stay in touch with us if you have questions or thoughts or anything else we need to know, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Thanks, everyone.